All right, let's jump right in. Today we're going to talk about something a little unsettling. What happens when the world you think you know just completely falls apart?
So, let me ask you something. Is the world you're experiencing right now actually real? I mean, it feels real, right? It's solid, you can touch it, it makes sense. But what if all of that is just a story your brain is telling you?
Okay, so let's get into it. The wild thing is, your brain is literally building your entire world, second by second. It's taking in all this information, sights, sounds, feelings, and spinning it into what you call reality. It's like the most powerful supercomputer imaginable. But what happens when that supercomputer gets a bug? A little glitch in the code. That's when things get really, really weird.
In our first glitch, well, it's a big one. It takes us right to the core of who you are, your sense of self. We're talking about something called Cotard's Delusion, and it has a nickname that tells you everything you need to know, the walking corpse syndrome. Now, the crazy part here is the absolute certainty. This isn't someone just feeling depressed or feeling like they're dead. No. People with Cotards are 100% convinced they are dead. They'll tell you they're a corpse, that their organs are gone, or that they just don't exist anymore, and you can't talk them out of it.
And this isn't some abstract thought experiment. Get this, there was a 53-year-old woman who was so convinced she was dead, she started hanging out in a cemetery all day. I mean, to her, it made perfect sense. Where else would a dead person go? It's this kind of terrifying internal logic that makes it so chilling.
So how on earth does a brain even do this? Well, neurologically, it seems to be linked to things like severe depression or even brain injuries. There's a part of your brain, the fusiform gyrus, that's supposed to give you that feeling of meanness, that sense of familiarity with yourself. When that part goes haywire, you get this profound detachment. It's so extreme that people stop taking care of themselves. I mean, think about it. Why would you bother eating if you're already a corpse?
Okay, so if Coders is about your own self breaking down, our next glitch flips that around. What happens when you're fine, but the people you love most suddenly seem fake? This is Capgras Delusion, the belief in impostors.
Here's the key thing to understand. It's all about a disconnect. Imagine you're looking at your mom, your spouse, your best friend. You see their face, you recognize every detail, but that warm, familiar feeling you're supposed to get, it's just gone. It's a total emotional blank. So your brain, trying to make sense of this void, comes up with the only logical explanation it can. That's not them. That's an identical imposter.
And this can get incredibly dangerous really fast. Just look at this case. A man became so convinced his own father was a robot replica that he attacked him. He was literally trying to find the batteries and wires inside. It's just a horrifying example of where that broken logic can lead when your brain is trying desperately to explain a signal that isn't working right.
So what's the science here? The leading theory is basically a crossed wire. The visual part of your brain says, yep, that's mom's face. But the connection to your emotional center, the amygdala, is severed. The feeling of mom doesn't arrive with the picture. So the logical part of your brain jumps in to solve the puzzle and comes up with a story, imposture.
And doesn't this feel eerily familiar today? I mean, we live in a world of AI and deepfakes, where you can't always trust that the video you're watching is real. The core fear of Capgras, that what you see isn't who you think it is suddenly not so far-fetched, is it?
Now, what's really fascinating is that Capgras has a kind of evil twin, a perfect mirror image. And this sets us up for our next glitch. If Capgras is about a familiar face feeling unreal, Fregoli is the opposite. Lots of different, unfamiliar faces all feel like the same familiar person. One is a lack of connection, the other is a false connection. And that brings us to the Fregoli Delusion. This is the stuff of spy thrillers and nightmares. It's the absolute belief that you're being stalked by one single person who is a master of disguise.
Just try to imagine the paranoia for a second. You're convinced that one single enemy is out to get you, and they're everywhere. They're disguised as the person who serves you coffee, the guy delivering your mail, that random stranger on the subway. Your entire world becomes this terrifying stage, and everyone is just one actor in a different costume.
And this paranoia is all-consuming. There's a case of a woman who is sure her persecutor was a total shapeshifter. They were her doctors, her nurses, they were even the characters on TV. Her only escape, the only way she felt safe, was to completely cut herself off from the world.
So what's the glitch here? Think of it like your brain's facial recognition software going into overdrive. That fusiform area we talked about, it's firing on all cylinders, finding connections that aren't there.
It's incorrectly flagging all these different faces and linking them all back to one single identity, usually someone the person is afraid of. It's literally a conspiracy theory generated by your own brain's faulty wiring.
And again, doesn't this hit a little close to home? We live in an age of constant surveillance. We know our data is being tracked, our faces are being scanned. That feeling of being watched by an unseen entity, the core paranoia of Fregoli, suddenly feels less like a bizarre delusion and more like a sign of the times. All right, let's shift gears for our last one. We've covered glitches in how we see ourselves and how we see other people. But what happens when the physical world itself starts to bend and twist? Welcome to Alice in Wonderland Syndrome.
This one's different. It's not a delusion or a belief. It's about what you are literally seeing and feeling. People with AWS have these totally bizarre episodes where the world just distorts. A room might suddenly look like it's stretching out forever. Their own hands might shrink to the size of a doll's. A door that's 10 feet away might look like it's a mile down a hallway. It's a complete sensory nightmare.
Can you even imagine trying to go about your day like that? One person talked about the pure panic of being behind the wheel of a car and suddenly feeling like the car was shrinking, like they were driving a little toy. It's a total breakdown of your brain's GPS, its ability to understand something as basic as size and distance.
So what sets this off? A lot of the time, it's things you wouldn't expect, like a really bad migraine, epilepsy, or even certain infections. They seem to mess with a part of the brain called the parietal lobe, which is basically your hub for spatial awareness. When that glitches, your brain's entire rulebook for how space, scale, and even time are supposed to work just gets thrown out the window.
So, where does all of this leave us? I mean, these syndromes are more than just weird medical stories. They're like looking at the source code of our minds. They're glitches that reveal the fragile architecture our brain uses to build what we call reality.
Think about it. We've seen 4 ways reality can just shatter. With Cotard's, your self is deleted. With Capgras, the people you love become fakes. With Fregoli, strangers become one single enemy hunting you. And with AIWS, the very physics of the world around you becomes a lie. And what this all screams, really, is a pretty unsettling truth. That solid, predictable world you trust, it's an illusion. An incredibly convincing, but ultimately delicate illusion. It's a story your brain is constantly telling itself, and it is literally just one tiny neural misfire away from collapsing into chaos.
Which brings me to one last thought for you to chew on. Your mind is your greatest tool, your best friend for making sense of everything. But as we've just seen, it can also be your absolute worst enemy. So the question I'll leave you with is, which one is actually in control?